Welcome back. Good afternoon. Happy weekend. We made it, folks. We finished exactly where we started. The exact to the point. Where we started on Monday, we finished on Friday. Now, that's not exactly the story for everything. Mega caps blowing it out of the water. Earnings this week. Again, this was the sort of the start of big tech earnings this week, and the culmination of them just blew them out of the water, right? And that's again when we look at the average, it's meh to say the least. To note, Amazon did pull back from sort of the points it put on, sort of reacting to the rest of the market. But again, look at these trends that are set up. Uh, I mean, the the numbers speak for themselves, right? They speak for themselves. And the thing that's important here is that if you did take these trades, and from my view of being in these trades, and Apple's probably like the best example of this, and then buying Microsoft on the low here, is that price doesn't stop for earnings, right? Price doesn't stop, and this is where you can have something like Microsoft here, or we look around and you see things like Amazon here. It's break even on the day after its earnings, but the thing to remember here is that price doesn't stop, and if the earnings were significant and they were actually very bullish, right, and they were positive in terms of confirmation of these ideas, then price is going to continue to go to the upside, right? And this is where you can get this is where that that feeling of wow, earnings was really great. Why is the price down? And then you kind of look past it. Price is not going to stop, and if they're good, it's going to continue. And so this is where you can look at a day like today, and it was important to go into today knowing uh, that you're not going to have a green day every single day. You definitely had some things that came down today, and that's why I talked about this morning. You have some negative sort of pricing coming in, but comparative to the rest of the week, it shouldn't really be much of anything, right? It's a blip in sort of a blip in the move, and so in this trend, when we look at some things, there's definitely some things that surprised me a little bit in terms of the selling. Like if we look through some of the things that took profit in prices coming down, there's it's a little bit more than I would have expected. Things like retail stores and uh, growth overall not being up or as strong coming into the week. I think it does go to show how many points we put on, but it does seem like to me, and this is where I'm going to get into the discussion of the dollar here. It does seem like we had this this very lazy, like I would say lazy. That's kind of what it felt like, was a lazy sort of day today. And that's I talked about this idea of being a buyer or a holder. In the market right now is a holder and we're buyers. And so this is where when we look and we continue to go through and we can kind of see that there was basically no volatility today other than the selling did generate this idea, but it's staying within again this channel and this trend we've been on. The dollar moving up the most is probably the largest proponent of this, and I think it's we even when I saw this earlier, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And it just out of sort of nowhere, there's dollar pressure coming in the open, going into lunch, and this is the kind of thing that will cause you get a we were going to have a break even day, right? It looked like we were going to have a break even day. Everything is sort of digesting the earnings numbers and economic numbers, and so we were going to have a sort of a break even day. Most likely, value doing the best, which value did do the best today, and then you get this sort of this little bit extra, right? A little extra on the tail end of not so much again volatility, but this sort of negative factor to do nothing. And so if you look at prices, if we actually look and we didn't get the we didn't get the trajectory I was talking about here. We started and then we have this sort of again, there's no trading here. Look at these candles. Like this is the average, right? This is the least amount of effort, right? The least amount of effort. And the way we know this is that any of you that took those travel trades, you had a great day today, right? the things that are actually volatile were volatile today. And so when we go take a look at short-term volatility part, look at these, look at the line on this, right? Look at the price action. And this is where you start to go, okay, the things that are volatile already are presenting sort of the biggest moves today. When we look at we were watching Tesla earlier, right? But just looking at travel is paid off very well here, and so it looks very good to go over the weekend. I'm happy about this trade. Uh, Again, we wanted to get exposure on this side of things, and we're pushing a trade for a lot of good reasons, and the volatility definitely helps when the market's trading flat, right? And we talk about this when the market's trading flat, you want to be getting in things and betting on volatility coming from there. Obviously, earnings have kind of gapped us all over the fucking place, so those are not the best example. And then when we look at things like Tesla, right? This is a very nice trade, and again, you don't really know. You know that if the market's trading flat, that there's going to be opportunities for those positions that are volatile, because if everyone's not doing anything, then everyone's going to go chase whatever has momentum. And so today was definitely one of those days, and that's what will make it interesting leading into next week. And so if you had trades that you stuck with, you you're going to be getting paid for those, right? There's a lot of reasons why, just in terms of probability, that if you held things going into the weekend, where you could have entered things this week, and maybe you lost some points here today, and then maybe you felt like you should take profit at some point, or maybe you're looking and going, damn, wish I took profit, yesterday, or things you entered today that you just break even on, or even maybe a little down, that when you look at the price action we had sort of today and sort of the things that did do well, it does seem like in terms of probability, you should be getting paid. And this is, again, we're talking about a long-term situation here of the market continuing to go up, but we are looking for these moments where there are opportunities to get points very quickly. Why, when, where, what? There's some, certainly the timing is not going to be perfect, right? The timing is just, it doesn't exist, right? Should you have bought Ford down here? I didn't buy Ford down here on this move here, but those people that did are getting paid for it for buying on the low here. Now, this sort of shit that has happened a little bit this week due to the earnings, this is again the same sort of, it does beg for the question of opportunity cost. Should you be entering these and sitting there waiting? And this is, again, as long as you're going through sort of a list of, okay, I'm going to buy the most bullish sectors first, and then you start to go through, then you can start to play around a little bit. And so it does help to have capital. And I think people that don't have, I would say, enough capital to spread through multiple sort of sectors probably had the worst week because you either had a great week or a terrible week, because if you were able to catch some of the earnings, or you were in some of the mega caps, then you did great. You were in value, you just continued to trend. But if you somehow pick the wrong tickers because you can't trade enough of, you just literally can't buy enough things, then you probably get beat up. And that's where, if you don't have enough money to get exposure to everything that you really need to with what we're looking at, then you should just be trading through the ETFs, right? And just trading through a market exposure, because there's no reason to be going into this week and getting beat up when almost, like, the number was literally like 90% of companies beat earnings, and they were up because of them, right? They were all up because of that. And so you definitely, for this week, just looking at the whole week, just go look at the indices, right? Look where we are, right? You didn't lose anything this week, and you actually gained. You actually gained through most of this on the option side, right? And so gauging this week, it was definitely, I would say that this side here with value is, it does surprise me a little bit, and that's really with the economic numbers. I think there's a digestion going on, right? It's a bit of a consolidation, but I don't really want to even use that term of, it's just a slowdown from this big rally here. it does surprise me we didn't break out from the economic numbers. And again, that could just be some digestion going into next week. And so, again, when we look at the tech side, I think it's more obvious over here that this week we had a very sort of bullish week, even though, again, you look at the average and it's like, well, we sort of just finished the week exactly where we started it. It's really hard to look at this week and say that's the case. I don't think it's I don't think anyone actually thinks that, right? When you look at the numbers, it's like this is the most ridiculous thing ever, right? People are going to be bullish on that. It's just a matter of, again, everyone has already bought everything. When everyone's already bought everything, it does present the challenge of how do you keep pushing prices up. There's going to be ways to push price up here, right? There's plenty of ways to do so. I'm excited to see what the I would say now that we sort of have done it, now we can actually move past that and start to speculate on the next thing, which is much more interesting when you get past the earnings and now we have the information and now we start to put the pieces together, right? And that's where it does. I can already guarantee that by next week and the week after, when we look back in hindsight, there's going to be a lot of trades that seem really silly that we should be a part of here. And that's why I'm sticking with this mentality of the best day to enter was yesterday. That's the honest truth here. And so going to next week, my questions are on China. What the hell's going on with some of this regulation shit that I do think that there's money coming out of China that came in, and that's why the dollar's up right now. Is that money came out of China to buy U.S. equities? So that would be basically a net positive. But I don't know if that's so much of a net positive if there's trouble in paradise over here. This is again regulation. This matters. This matters. So it really did look like we were ready to get out of there, and a lot of those trades were working out. And then we get this sort of price action, and it wasn't like Alibaba and Tencent earnings are bad or something. It was during their earnings call, literally talking about China regulations are causing issues, right? And there's a lot of problems. It's not fucking capitalism, right? That's not what it is. And so we'll have to see what this does. It did obviously set the tone for us starting out the day. Europe was fine today, did fine. So this is something that we do need to keep in mind because it does matter in terms of growth. And like I've said, I do think it's the play that if that gets lifted, then we're talking about this price has been suppressed. Since the up here in the high, this price has been suppressed because of regulations by China. If that gets lifted, we're talking about some pretty big ups. But we do want to keep in mind the flow. If money did come in here, there is a lag. It is a lag. And so the dollar comes up, and this is where we get back to the flow. Does that money go into something like gold here or going into Bitcoin here before it goes to equities, or do we then go into equities? It didn't immediately go into equities. It's hard to say if this is that same money here. There's no way to know that. It's going to be interesting. If you look at the world stage right now and you could buy anything, you have money, there's only one thing to buy, and that's U.S. equities. And so where prices are right now, they're certainly attractive and certainly pushing through in the earnings and seeing the numbers we did. There's no reason why they're not going to be bid again next week. So again, we've gotten continuous confirmation here of what we're doing, which is to continue to push longer term trades. And right now, we're obviously working through putting on new trades that are a little bit shorter term and betting on sort of rally in the sense that there's going to be more volatility to the upside. And so we're sort of doing the opposite of this idea that there's just going to be a trend, that there's actually going to be more swings to the upside, which was proven through mega caps this week. We'll see if that continues on things like Tesla. Microsoft comes back from that low on the value side. Whether or not that, I think it is through value that you get the biggest swing up. And I do think that would need to happen sort of at the beginning of next week, because we just got these numbers, and if we don't see the money now, then it would kind of signal to me that people have already spent everything they can on this idea. So we'll see what that is, but this certainly looks like. I mean, what does this look like, right? You have this big rally, you have some sort of consolidation here. Whether you want to go throw a flag in here, whatever you want to do, if we get a breakout here, then it's significant. And I think right now, for a day like today, it's this mentality. It's not so much of buying at lows. People want to be buying on movement. They want to buy on momentum, right? And so if price starts getting to the upside, people will buy. And so that will definitely get things going. And so we'll see what that looks like to begin next week. Obviously, the travel was fun. I am going to mention the semiconductor thing that happened this week. I think this is like the most. I mean, it's just sort of it connects everything. Somehow this has just sort of taken over uh, every single I don't know, whatever you want to say, but it's a part of just about every single company that's producing anything, right? And so I think this is going to be the most interesting thing next week, probably in terms of a sector, because what does the market actually think? And again, this is where my understanding of the way things would work here is that now what we've had is this whole week of earnings calls basically complaining that we don't have the actual semiconductors to make our product, and we need that shit, and we know that manufacturing is going to be getting kicked up. We're going to be hearing more over the next few weeks on what exactly that is, right? But we need to be pricing that, right? We're going to be pricing it in the market before any of these things happen, and yada yada yada. That might take a fucking year or two. Who knows? We know that the market's going to be pricing this. So far, we're back to where we sort of started when this started to become a thing, because we started to again, we had this big breakout, and then we started to get all of this semiconductor shortage, and it started to become a problem. And then the price started reacting in such a way that I talked about, where when there's a supply shortage, prices are going up, and the equity market's going to try to it's basically trying to benchmark with that. And then this selling here is almost directly it's pretty clear it's directly with the earnings calls and sort of the negative impact that had. And that kind of shows that, okay, there is actually there's obviously less production as sort of a byproduct of them. And so that's going to cause less numbers overall. And so we're getting this like very direct pricing to the actual fundamental aspects, not using fundamental, but the actual supply chains and the logistics part. And so coming into next week, we're sort of you either are you believe that this actually makes it a more bullish case, because you're basically you have a product that's significantly in demand. It's significantly in demand, and world governments are even willing to spend money. And I think what was mispriced for sure is the TSM side over here. They came out and said that they're going to spend a shit ton of money to fix this problem, right? And we got this back. It was a couple weeks ago. I think it was a few weeks ago. We heard the first rumor of it, and then it was like 2 weeks ago, coming into the earnings call, that they came out and said they're going to do a significant amount of spending to ramp up production, right? And TSM's the largest sort of producer of semiconductors in the world. They do sort of through the massive supply that it keeps prices down. And so I think that was mispriced, but I think it's because the market didn't understand how significant it was going to be, that every single company in the world was going to come out on their earnings and say, yeah, we didn't have enough fucking chips to actually make shit. So even though everyone blew earnings out of the water, right? And so it's like that very strange, oh yeah, numbers were the best ever, but we actually couldn't even build as much as we wanted to, or we couldn't do as much as we wanted to. So I think this was mispriced. And so I do think that right now what's happening is it's a risk aversion, right? There's so many good things to buy right now that if you don't know, then you just exit that position and go put the money somewhere else. That's exactly what the market's doing here by selling with those earnings calls, right? If you see something like you see these ridiculous numbers that mega caps have, why wouldn't you just exit this position that you have no clue what's going to happen and just go put the money there, right? Of course you would. There's no reason to, and that's exactly what has been done here. Now, that does not make it right. That doesn't make this price correct, right? And so coming into next week, um, I think this is probably going to be the most interesting. Now, I'm in these positions, right? I'm in this position, so I think this UMC position is probably the best technical setup we've had, and so the way we're sort of wedged in between this idea of a trend and where this sort of, whether we want to call this, it's not really a significant level here, but it's we're certainly getting reactions here at a level, and at least in the idea of swinging back. You think about this candle coming through here, right? We had significant price action. This felt like, to me, like this was the correct price action. Now, we were able to obviously take profit on this move and then re-enter here, and so it shouldn't really dictate too much of the price action here, even though people profited. I would say this kind of this would be, I mean, it would be obviously pretty nice. You get this big play here, and then you get another big play here. This is a lot of volatility for options. We would make a significant amount on that if you put those two together, right? Taking profit on this move and then another move here, and leading that into God knows where, right? These sort of things would lead to a lot, and so I would be, you know, I'm betting on it. I'm betting on all of these to be putting some upside next week, and I think it's just going to be some sort of again, people ask themselves the question and they've sort of already bought all the other things they want to buy. They're going to want to go probably get a part of this, and I don't know if something needs to come out or something. I don't think it's specifically news. I think it's just a timing thing over here. And again, when you do the math here, it's not like, again, values being lost. You lost some time. You put this much bid on AMD, which has been super bearish. It gives it a chance, right? You're already telling everyone that if it can come up here, then it can do it again, and that's actually, this is actually good for it. Yeah, losing points is not good, but showing that you can get up here and that the earnings and everything is actually to the bid side, then all we need to do is get past this event, right? And now we are, because that's how markets work. So uh, I would say that for short terms, this was definitely an opportunity, and so we'll see what that looks like. And again, this, we have a lot of moving parts right now in terms of flows. It's like when we look at commodities, right? You have this big super cycle going on with commodities where prices are just getting jacked up out of their mind, and it's causing sort of this output to change the prices because of it. It's like you look at lumber prices, and then I just saw a number came out today that due to lumber prices being so high, it's literally adding on $35,000 to housing prices. $35,000 as an average to buying a house now. It's cheaper. Like when you start to look at it, you could find areas where it's cheaper to be buying houses because of this whole phenomenon that's going. We're seeing that everywhere, right? And so this is something that, again, we need to be very aware of, sort of the movements that are happening, because as those prices rise, it is causing a shift to happen. It's, again, like energy. We've talked about energy and the moves that's happening here, why this is very bullish, and how you actually want price action like this. You don't, I mean, one way street is obviously nice, but this sort of price action, you don't sell from this, right? I can comfortably sit here and go, I know that this is actually bullish here, right? And this is sort of commodity driven. It's very much crude driven. And you look at that price, and these are going to get, I would say it's going to get more and more like this, and in understanding where this is. So again, this is where energy is on the equity market right now. We're sort of over here. We still need to sort of swing back up further. I know, again, that this is reacting in the same way, but we never put this move on the energy side and the equity side because we were coming into earnings. And so you had things like CVX today with this big downwards move on earnings. This sort of thing, these were great numbers, right? But it's this sort of thing. They increased their dividend. They're doing increased spending. These sort of things, they lend to the market coming down a bit, but it's actually more opportunity when our mentality right now is to be a buyer. Holders are going to hold, and now as buyers we can buy on these, right? And so I would say overall it was a very nice week. So again, I took GEBA. We'll see how these trades work out. Betting on value to have a nice move here. I don't think there was anything else to really mention. Again, we'll see what when the dust settles next week from the earnings, whether or not I would say whether or not the guidance that was thrown out is going to carry us further, and if not, then again the biggest sort of proponent of continuing a bullish move in this market is buybacks, and so I think it's going to become more and more obvious. And there wasn't something specifically today that I would say, but think about it. You're one of these big companies and you haven't done any buybacks yet, and your price came down a little bit here today. Well, wouldn't it be nice just to, go buy a few shares on Apple, buy Apple, right? If this price jacks up on Monday, who do you think's buying it, right? Apple's buying it. So we're going to look for those type of things next week as well. So should be a nice week. I mean, it should be a really nice week. If you want volatility and you didn't get much volatility this week because you only look at the SPY and Qs or something, and you weren't looking at individual companies fucking gapping up, then next week is probably going to be very volatile because we sort of got out of the wind, and now we can make some plays. So it should be interesting. In terms of charts, we'll see what we got. I mean, I haven't really looked at anything today, so I'll do some digging over the weekend. I would like, if I can, to find some weekly charts. So I'm gonna do a scan through on weekly charts as well. I think it is important right now to still have those. Again, I'm sort of already positioned for long terms, but I do want to continue to looking for these long term ideas and sticking with those. So we'll see what we can come up with. Either way, guys, enjoy your weekend. This was a fun week. I think it was a fun week. Let me see what we got in profit section. $5 and minus 1,000 by C Trader on his longs. There it is. C Trader also made a few $1,000s every single day apparently. So again, sounds very much like what I said. How was your week? And then, I lost money today. I lost some money today too. And I'm about to lose some more money to some margaritas and some senoritas. I'll see you guys Monday. Enjoy.